Welcome to Downshift, my name is Matt, and this is BMW's first ever electric sedan. Of course, this is their i4, and last week we did a tour of all the coolest and most interesting features here, but today we're going to hit the highlights, the best and the rest, thanks to our friends at International BMW. The first point we're going to start with isn't so much a bad thing, it's just has to do with the efficiency here. The i4 is built on the same chassis as the Gas 4 series, and the Gas 4 series has a great chassis, so it's a good starting spot. But then, as you adapt a gas chassis to an EV, you inherently leave some wasted space. Like under the hood, there's no frunk, so no additional storage, and your center console is maybe more cramped and tight than it would otherwise need to be, and the rear seats do still have a drivetrain tunnel hump in the floor for a drivetrain that doesn't exist in this car. Does it affect drivability or usability of the car? No, not really at all, but it is just something to be aware of. So as this progresses and it gets its own bespoke EV chassis, it'll get even better and more efficient using its space. And number two, we're going to talk about range. This is not something I'm personally upset about, but something that has to go on this side of the video because, well, some of the other offerings exist. The i4 here has a single motor for rear wheel drive. This isn't uncommon for a base or long range version of an EV, but range here is rated about 301 miles. Again, not bad on the face of it. However, the Tesla Model 3 long range does about 333 miles of range, and it gets there with all-wheel drive or dual motor. And the Hyundai Ioniq 6, 361 miles of range in rear-wheel drive form. So again, 301 miles isn't bad, but it's just not the best that you can get. And then if you get the bigger, better looking 20-inch wheels, your range goes down from there. Again, that said, those competitors that we mentioned here, they're not really BMW competitors, so take that with a pinch of salt. And third, as we step into the rear seats, again, this is going to be a product of the adaptation from the gas chassis to an EV application. When they put the batteries in, they put them in the floor, which raises the floor and makes the rear seats a little less spacious than they already were. However, they're still pretty reasonable for myself at 6'1". I don't have a lot of feet room, and my legs do tend to kind of surround the front seat, but I can sit back here comfortably. It is kind of headroom at this point. Your rear seats can be heated, and you do have your own independent climate zones back here. So no, it's not perfect, but it's definitely not bad either. So let's talk about all the great stuff going on. And first is the trunk. Now, all i4s are built off the 4 Series Grand Coupe body style, which means they're all liftbacks like this, which translates to max practicality. And it is. The cargo space here is pretty big. Weirdly, you can't drop the rear seats from the trunk, but of course, you just go up to the rear seats and you can drop them there. And you do get an emergency release back here despite this being a hatch, because the privacy cover is 2 pieces, it's kind of fixed into place, and it's hard finished. But undeniably, you have to love the hatch practicality here. And the second thing is the drive. With the single motor rear wheel drive here, this thing is packing about 335 horsepower. It's an easy and familiar driving experience behind the wheel. It is a little zippier noticeably than the Audi e-trons that we've driven, but it doesn't do that at the sacrifice of being smooth. That's what you get here. It's really smooth coming on power. They've calibrated it really well, and the damping is really great. So it does feel nice and solid, and you get great cabin isolation. With, like right now, coming down the road, I don't hear any wind noise, I don't hear any tire roar, the only thing I hear is the fan from the AC. I genuinely also kind of think that this amount of power makes sense for the price. Non-M people, they don't really need access to more power than this. You're just going to get in trouble with rear wheel drive, especially if it gets wet or gets cold like here in Wisconsin, where it does. But I mean, if you want to turn traction control off and you do want to get sideways, you can. But other than that, the grip is actually really good. The added weight with the battery capacity and all the extra EV stuff puts a lot of weight on the rear tires and of course the fronts as well. So your grip is actually really good. You could probably absolutely drive this thing year-round in the winter here in Wisconsin with a proper set of tires. Overall, it's fun, it's spunky, and it's really, really smooth. So I'm a fan. Number 3, we're talking technology, and as you'd expect, this thing is loaded with all the newest stuff. You get things like iDrive 8 and a totally new dash design with massive dual screens for your cluster and infotainment. They are curved and they're kind of tacked into the dash, but they look clean. And interestingly, the Gas 4 series has the old screen setup, while this was kind of the first one to introduce it to the 3 and 4 lineup. You do get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you get 360 cameras, and you can add widgets to your home screen like you can on your phone. And of course you've got reverse assist, which is one of my favorite things, and of course the digital cluster we mentioned before. Not to mention a pretty robust driver assistance suite. And this is kind of a smaller thing, but I just like the unique nature of the logos here. Like Toyota, BMW identifies their electrified stuff with blue on their logos, but this is a fully electric vehicle. So you've got blue surrounds for your roundels, front and back. You've also got blue surrounds on the center caps of all your wheels. You've got a blue shifter, you've got a blue start button inside, and you've got blue on your steering wheel. A smaller detail, but pretty neat. And this may not be the most expensive BMW you can buy, but it is still a BMW, and it is still plenty luxe. The build is super solid here, the materials are really nice, and some are even recycled. And your seats have lumbar adjustments, they're heated, they're cooled, the steering wheel is heated, and the rear seats can be heated as well. And you've got a nice big sunroof. And apart from all that, it is just really, really smooth and nice to drive. And number 6 is the sounds. This is another smaller thing, but something that I think makes a big part of the experience. This has the iconic sounds package composed by Hans Zimmer. But from when you start the car to when you turn it off, it makes cool sounds. You can also turn it on or off, and you can set it to be on or off depending on what drive mode you're in. Like right now, I have it on for sport mode, and then in eco mode, I have it off to just be quiet and comfortable cruiser. So, I mean, I know people have feelings about sounds in EVs, but if you're gonna have them, you might as well have the dude that did Interstellar compose them, right? And the last thing we'll talk about is price. And this one's kind of hard to touch on because there actually aren't that many true competitors to this thing. Mercedes has their EQE, but that's bigger and way more expensive. And I'm not even going to begin to pretend that Teslas are luxury cars. And the Hyundai Ioniq 6 is not really in the same segment. It's a Hyundai versus a BMW. So with all that in mind, suddenly the $56,000 starting price and the $61,000 as tested price start to seem kind of reasonable here. So that's the best and the rest of the BMW i4. Last summer, we tested the dual motor M50 version, and I really liked that. And then this summer, we're in the rear wheel drive eDrive 40 version. And I have to say, I really like this as well. It's got a great balance, it's got a great smoothness, style, and luxury. And it is still pretty quick. So again, thanks to our friends at International BMW for letting us have a go in their i4, and we'll see you in the next one.